Hello and welcome to the Hyrulean Chronicles, a podcast from the Play Talk Repeat crew, where we review and go in depth on the story of the entire Legend of Zelda timeline. I'm Oliver, and I'm joined by Lewis and Alex.
Hello.
Oh,
This episode, we've gone to what is widely considered by many to be not only the best game in the Zelda series, but one of the greatest games of all time, Ocarina of Time. So I'm just gonna get straight into the story between the last game we played, Four Swords, and Ocarina of Time. So there's surprisingly little story between Four Swords and Ocarina of Time, but here's what I've found. After the events of Four Swords, Hyrule enters a long period of civil war. During this time of war, a Hylian woman who is dying flees with her baby to the Kokiri forest, placing him in the care of the great Deku tree. This boy is then raised as a child of the forest who will ordinarily stay young forever and have fairy companions. Outside of the forest, the king eventually ends the war and unifies the kingdom. I really need to find a better way of writing notes because I can't read my own nonsense. It's really hard to actually figure out what I've actually wrote. But anyway, it's opening statements time, so can you give me a brief summary of what you thought about the game as well as your rating, please? And thank you, Alex.
okay. This might shock some of you,
Oh,
but I think this has replaced my favorite game of all time.
Ocarina of Time? What?
Really?
Really?
Yeah, after playing it again, it just made me remember my amazing childhood playing this game. And I think after playing it again, I had more fond memories of playing Ocarina of Time than I did Banjo-Kazooie. And I think I just enjoy it. It's just a much better game. 10 out of 10.
You know that there were games released after the N64 generation, don't you?
I know.
Okay, cool, man. No,
I know.
I'll allow it. I wasn't expecting that at all, but yeah.
Yes,
So what? I'm guessing it's a 10 out of 10 then, Alex. Surely,
I already said it. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Brilliant. I've just realised on the recording that our names are back to front, by the way. So I'm Oliver. That's Alex over there. Apologies. Right, you can carry on now. It's a shit show over it. Play Talk people love it. Lewis, I'll shift them while you're talking. Go on.
Yeah, so unlike Alex, I've never actually played the game before. This is my first time playing it. I should probably clarify that I did play the 3DS version of the game over the Nintendo 64 version, just because it seems to be, in most people's opinion, the definitive way to play it and the better way to play it. I know there's mixed things between the two 3D remakes on 3DS, Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. A lot of people seem to have issues with Majora's Mask, but Ocarina of Time everyone seems to love and say play that one if you want to play it. And genuinely, I was a lot more impressed with the game than I originally thought I would be. Obviously, since the game is so old and it's one of the older Zelda games in general, I thought that I was just going to heavily dislike it, just due to the nature of the game. But it is honestly one of my favorite Zelda games now. It's still not number one. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but as of right now, Twilight Princess is still my favorite Zelda game, by far. But Ocarina of Time is definitely probably in the top three for me in Zelda games. It's a really, really good time, and I'm happy to say it's good. As someone who's never even played it originally or is blinded by nostalgia, this is just a genuine opinion of the game for the first time in 2022. I just think it's a great time. I'd give it like a solid 8 out of 10. Really, really good time.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the same for me. So I remember I had fond memories of the game, but I think over time those like memories kind of like stale out a bit, and I thought, oh, gotta go back and play Ocarina of Time. But as soon as you get like an hour in, it all comes screaming back to you. It is. There's a reason some people still consider it to be the best game of all time. It's brilliant. It's like 3D Zelda in a nutshell. It was the first one to do it, but they did it so well, and that's why the formula remained the same for years and years and years. And like Lewis, I prefer Twilight Princess as well. There's better like iterations of the formula out there, but this again, yeah, like you say, is top 3 easily. And I also agree it is an 8 out of 10 for me as well. Yeah, I played the 3DS version as well. I think you played it on an emulator, didn't you?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is a bit cheating or whatever, but I played it on an emulator with like a 4K texture pack that someone had made. So the game probably looked slightly better just due to the fact it was on an emulator, but also because there was a texture pack. But I'm pretty sure it withheld most of the style of the original game. I don't think it changed much. It was just upscaling to make it look a bit nicer.
Yeah, I was more talking about the controls more than anything, because I played
Oh,
on 3DS, and you would have been playing it with a controller, wouldn't you?
well, yeah, that's the thing with me for 3DS. I love the DS, I love the DS games and stuff, but my hands cramp up really easily with the DS consoles just because they're so small. Um, and I own the game on 3DS. I've owned it for years. I've just never played it, mainly due to that reason. So I thought if I wanted the most optimal way to enjoy the game, I'd play it with a controller, and it was a good time. I did think there was going to be issues because obviously touchscreen. And being on an emulator, it means I have to map it all out to a controller, but it was actually a lot easier than expected. And I could control all the touchscreen stuff with just buttons on my Switch Pro controller, which is what I was using. So I had a good time. I think the controls are really good. Obviously, you two will have to comment on the how the touchscreen controls are when you're using it like that. But for me, yeah, I had a good time with them.
Oh,
All
yeah.
the controls.
We shall circle back round to that. So just to confirm, did you play the 3DS version as well, Alex?
I played both versions.
You play? Oh, you did.
I played the 3DS version first, and then I played the Nintendo Switch version on the NSO.
Oh yeah.
Definitely an upgrade for the 3DS version, 100%. They changed a lot of things between the versions, so they changed the text speed, made text speed faster. They changed some parts in the water temple, adding the little signs next to it to say the water levels. Item management, you can hold 4 items rather than 3, and Ocarina is mapped to the bottom screen, and Navi is less frequent as well.
Yes, which
So
is
it's like the major differences between the two versions.
which is a great thing. So graphically, let's just talk about the 3DS version for now, I guess, since that's what we've all played. So what do we think of what do we think graphically of the game, like especially the upgrades between the N64 and the 3DS version?
It's how I imagined it when I was younger.
Yes.
Like the environment. Like, I know Lewis can't even comment on it because he's upscaled it to 4K.
Yeah.
But yeah, the environments look amazing. Considering it came out in 2011 as well, very early into the 3DS life. Yeah, looks amazing.
For me, despite playing obviously upscaled, I still felt like I was playing a console game. It felt like a console experience. There was never any point in which I was looking at the game and thinking to myself, "Man, I wish this was on like a different console." Like, obviously, it'd be nice if it was on Switch or whatever. But I genuinely had no issues with playing it on the 3DS. I think they did an incredible job considering the limitations of that console, and they clearly put a lot of effort into it. Comparing it to the original one, I've obviously seen a lot of gameplay of the original one. I've seen hours and hours worth of footage of the original game, watching speed runs. I've seen lots of screenshots. I still think the original game, it has charm to it, and obviously I can still, with the sense of the direction that they took with it, I can appreciate the areas, but it's just the general thing with a lot of N64 games for me, they just look ugly. They all just look like sludge. They don't really, you can't really tell what's what, and it's just not a great time. So it's definitely a massive upgrade, but I think it's a testament to how good the direction was in the original game to how good it looks in the 3DS version, because they managed to carry that over and just make it look miles better. So yeah, I think it looks really, really good. Honestly, it's one of my favorite aesthetically. Aesthetically, it's one of my favorite Zelda games. Just from the way it looks. Like, I really, really like that this one was more colorful, because obviously this is coming from me as likes Twilight Princess a lot. It's obviously a lot darker, a lot like grittier. I did like that this was a lot more colorful, not as colorful as Skyward Sword. It still had its dark moments in Ocarina of Time, but I just thought the color palette overall was just really nice.
Yeah, I think the color palette, it really it kind of captures that sense of wonder is what they're going for, especially when you're playing a child Link in like the present day. It's it's all very wondrous and real sense of adventure when you're going out, kind of thing. I think the only place where it kind of suffers is in Hyrule Field, because that's sparse, man. It is a proper sparse environment, and that's the only bit to me. The only bit to me, like, all the dungeons and stuff look great. They all like they're atmospheric and stuff, but the actual field, Hyrule Field itself, it just looks very, very sparse.
It's one thing, but that when I was playing it, that I actively, every time I was in Hyrule Field, I would think to myself, I can guarantee this looked and felt a lot better on the N64 version, probably due to the fact that even just the render distance of how far you could see was probably way less. So it probably looked a lot more bigger and there was a lot more stuff to do because there is a lot of stuff well, not a lot of stuff. There is stuff scattered around Hyrule Field, like little secrets and stuff that you can go and see. And you can tell that if you were playing it on an N64, it would feel more like a small area.
Yeah.
Just due to the fact, like I said, the render distance, and when you approach, it would feel a lot larger than it was. But since you can see that all straight away, and it's not limited by that view distance or render distance, you can see that the way they've placed stuff around the map just looks really odd. And I think that's one of the things that didn't carry over necessarily well, by porting it over to like a remastered version. But it wasn't too bad, especially since I just think the traversal in this game is quite quick anyway. The game's not very slow. I felt everything to be quite quick, so I wasn't too bothered by how little there was in Hyrule Field. But yeah, I could definitely tell it was an N64 game originally, just by how scarce it was.
Traversal wasn't that quick for me. I never got Epona.
Well, that's the thing. Epona, even before Epona, I didn't really have an issue crossing Hyrule Field. I was never like, oh, for God's sake, I have to travel through Hyrule Field, because at max it was always like a minute to get to where I needed to be, especially with just rolling.
It's
And
not that long.
Link's just running speed in general is quite fast. Even when I had Epona, I didn't notice myself using it that much because, like I said, the field wasn't that big to begin with. And I only got Epona because I started messing around after one of the dungeons, and I wanted to see just what I could do, and I was like, I'm sure at this point I should probably have Epona, and I just went and figured it out. But there was one thing I wanted to ask. I may as well ask it now as we talk about Epona. There's one part, the part where you go into the because all of a sudden Oliver said he didn't get Epona the entire time, right? And maybe I just did this in a weird way, but to get to the water temple as adult Link, I had to use Epona to jump over the fence to get to where the big river was, because obviously you couldn't go through the original the original Zora temple to like dive under because it was iced off, because it was frozen.
So
how do you
you can do it, there's two different ways. So through Ice Cavern, when you do that, you get the Serenade of Water, so you can just teleport there. Or you can go through Gerudo Fortress and jump in the river, and then the river takes you down.
Oh, because I had Epona, and the only way I could get there was by jumping over that fence, and since you have to have Epona to jump over the fence, I was confused at how Oliver did it.
Yeah, no, I can't remember how I did it, to be honest with you, but I must have done. I assume it was the Serenade of Water.
Yeah, because you get that as soon as you get out of Ice Cavern, then you get the Zora Tunic, and then you can just teleport there.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
So we've talked a lot of positives, but I want to hear like your glaring issues with the game. There must be some. Like for me, I think this comes like it's fairly close to a perfect Zelda game. It gets the formula just right. There's like a great amount of dungeons, and it uses like the tried and true formula that games like Breath of the Wild like deviate from, right? You know, to their own demerit. But obviously the biggest issue with the game is the water temple. It's still bad. I wanted to make my points first, so you couldn't take this because that's what everyone's gonna say. But I'm not ashamed to say that I use a guide as soon as I got to the water temple, because I remembered it. I used a guide from the start to the finish of that temple to get through it as quickly as possible. It's still bad. You can put as many like colors on the screen so it like tells you where to go as much as you want, but it's a terrible temple.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I'm a bit of a baby just in any game. I don't like water levels in video games. I still to this day haven't found one that controls well or just feels nice to play. They're all just garbage. And I was really not looking forward to this temple just because it was the water temple. And after playing it, I may as well say this now as well. We'll probably talk about it later, but it is my least favorite temple in the game by like a long mile. For the first like 10 minutes, I was sort of feeling it, and I was like, this isn't that bad. And then like, I think this was the longest temple this temple took me the longest to complete as well, just because of how finicky it was. And yeah, but after like 2 hours in, I was just really pissed off, and I was like, I wish this was over. The boss was good, But the actual temple itself, yeah, it's just garbage. I don't know what you think about it, Alex. Do you like the temple, or are you not a fan?
Comparing this to other Zelda games, it's not the worst water temple, I think. I think there's one which is much worse, which I won't
I'm
say. I'll
interested to
save
know
it
which
for
one
that
you're talking
podcast.
about, to be honest with you.
For that podcast.
You better not be talking
Yeah,
about fucking
it's-
Twilight Princess, or else I'll throw hands, because that's a great temple.
Who knows what it is?
Who knows? Okay.
But yeah, I do agree with what you're both saying, saying it's not a fun temple because it isn't like a great temple having to change the water levels every single time. Then you accidentally change one that you didn't want to change. Yeah, it needed much more time and thought put into it. It's why everyone says that they hate the water temple in any
Yeah.
Zelda game because of Ocarina of Time. But yeah, that's legit all I can
Well,
say on it because
I
I know it off by heart, so I
Yeah.
can't.
Well, I feel like that was the
Thingy.
worst part about the water temple. It was the fact that you had to lower and raise the water level so often, and there was
Yep.
no quick way to get. Because there was one specific one that would get it to, up to the center, then from the center one to get it higher, and there was no quick or easy way to do it. If you could somehow lower it from where you were or the one you just raised it with, it'd be a lot easier. But you can't do that. So
Well,
it
I
requires
have
you going up and down a million times, and it's just ridiculous. Go
everything
on.
that I use Feroz Wind. I don't know if you even got this. It was the green magic spell, and when you walk through a door, you can set it as a warp point. So I set it to the top water level. So then, whenever I needed to go
Oh
back
yeah,
there,
yeah,
I
I
would
had
just
that
teleport
one.
back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't know how many spells there are. I think I had 3 of them. I had the green one, a red
Yeah,
one.
there's only 3. There's one for each
Three.
goddess.
Okay. No, yeah, I did get this one.
Funny actually. Then I'll talk about that when I talk about the beta
Does-
stuff because there was actually
does-
meant to be 7.
Really?
Does that mean they're optional then? Do you not have to get them?
The only one that's required is Din's Fire
Din's Fire.
Inspire,
yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, I realized that the hard way.
to
I'll
get into
explain that
the
later.
Shadow Temple.
Yeah, I'll explain that later. I guess I'll explain some of the stuff I don't like about it. And I've already discussed this with Alex and Oliver a little bit anyway. There's a couple things in the game where you have to be the most giga brain man in the world. Like, you have to be Albert Einstein himself to figure out some of this shit. And I don't get for the life of me how the game expects you to understand it. It wants you to buy a guide 100% back in 1997 or whenever it was. It's outrageous. Some of the stuff it expects you to figure out. Admittedly, there are some things that are fine. Like one that I brought up to Alex originally was in the ice cavern when you have to give Jabu Jabu the fish for the first time. I couldn't figure that one out, and I searched up online how you meant to know to do it, and it turned out there was a Zora that would tell you that his favorite food is fish, and I was like, completely fair. Like that's just my fault. I was looking around, I couldn't find anything. That was completely my fault. But then there was later in the game when you get the hook shot. Is it from Dampe? Is it the hook shot that you get? After that, you get put into a room with just a fucking cube, and you have to use the Song of Time to move that cube. And I was there for 10 minutes being like, what the fuck do I do? Because there's nothing in the room apart from Navi. And Alex told me this, and maybe I'm dumb for this. He told me that you can, when Navi goes up to stuff, you can speak to her and she'll tell you to do stuff. And I was like, and then because he told me that's how you're meant to know, because she'll tell you to do it. But then I was like, well, what the fuck's the point? Because I thought up until this point in the game, Navi was used if you need a hint on how to do something, not straight up, literally, like, it's not a hint when you literally need her to tell you how to do it. That's not a hint. That's literally how you progress the game. And I thought that was ridiculous. I thought that was one of the stupidest things in the world, especially when I was so adamant about trying to figure stuff out myself because I didn't want to cheat. But then the other one that was awful, which was by the worst one by far for me, was the one where you had to get into the bottom of the well, because it was just so convoluted that you had to get the whatever the song was, the one that made it rain in that thing. Yeah, because there's like a couple of characters in throughout the game where, because bear in mind when you speak to these characters, they don't teach you the song. suggest that they may know a song, and then you have to get your ocarina out, and they'll be like, "Oh shit, you have an ocarina? I'll teach you this song." And that happened like 2 or 3 times throughout the game. So first of all, I didn't know he was going to teach me a song. I'll say now I cheated for this because I looked online because I didn't know what to do. I found out that he had to teach me a song, and I was like, great. And then you had to like go back to being a kid or whatever, and then play the song outside to move the windmill or whatever. And I was like, there's literally zero chance, unless I had a million hours as a kid, that I would ever have figured that out like by myself. It just wasn't going to happen, because it wasn't like the Zora thing where there was an NPC that tells me to go and do it. It just wanted me to know somehow that was going to happen, and that one really pissed me off. Like I actually really hated that. And I just felt like there was a bunch of stuff like that in the game. Another one was, for example, again in Jabba Jabba's belly, where up until that point in the game, there'd been like wooden crates, and at no point did it tell me you could pick them up. So I was just breaking them, because every time you broke them, there was stuff inside them. So I just thought it was basically like pots in any other game where you can get stuff. And you needed to pick up the box to put on a button, because previously in Jabba Jabba's belly, you picked up the Zora princess and held her on your head, and you could put her on buttons and stuff. I didn't realize you could pick up boxes and then put those on buttons either, but that's just because I was so used to what it taught me 20 minutes earlier. And it just, again, it was one of those things that I had to look up, and I felt really stupid when I looked it up. But I don't know, the game's just very annoying sometimes with explaining what to do. And I noticed that a lot, specifically in Ocarina of Time compared to other Zelda stuff. It just felt like it wanted you to buy a guide or just get fucked, really. That was sort of the 2 options.
The trick to it is just don't feel stupid when you're looking it up, you know what I mean? It's not, we're not in 1996, you know what I mean? We haven't got all day to play these games.
Yeah, exactly. You weren't me when I was
exactly.
5 years old playing this game every single
No,
day.
but I'm fine with a puzzle. I'm happy with puzzles. I like a good puzzle. I don't think a puzzle is a puzzle when there's no way to know the answer to the puzzle unless you search it up. At that point, it just upsets me, and it's really stupid. Outside of like the stupid just like not explaining stuff, I didn't have too many issues with the game design. I don't think, for the majority, as you said before, it leans towards being sort of a perfect Zelda game. Alex might have some more issues with it, and he might be able to explain them, but that was for the most part what annoyed me. Just not giving you clues for really like major things that you needed to know, and just not helping you in the slightest.
Lewis, this is Alex's favourite game of all time. I
exactly.
can't imagine he's got much bad to say.
Surely he could have wanted to pick it
couple
apart.
things.
Yeah, surely he understands what's bad about it.
Rupees are a big thing in Zelda games. In this game, you don't really need them apart from like a couple things.
That is true. I did notice that. I barely ever used it. I bought them to like buy like a Hyrulean shield once. And
I didn't even do that.
Can I say one thing? Oh, I can say this real quick before you carry on. That was one of my least favorite things in the game. When I spent like 200 rupees on that sword.
Big knife.
Yeah, the big knife, and then I hit a rock with it once, and it just shattered, and I was pissed. I was angry. I was like actually like fuming.
So you didn't do the actual side quest to get the
no,
big
I read it up. I read up on it afterwards that there was a quest, but I was like, I can't. Like, I'm not about that. Like, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
But that did piss me off though. And it took me a while to get those 200 rupees as well at that point in the game. It was a grind, and then immediately it was taken away from me.
Brilliant.
But yeah, carry on.
No, yeah, that's like a big thing, because I didn't even buy a Hyrulean shield, because you can get one in the graveyard when you're a kid.
Yes, yeah, you can. Yeah.
So I didn't even buy one. So I think there's like 2 things that you need to buy in the entire game, and that's pretty much it. So you don't really need rupees the entire games. They're just pointless.
Yeah.
That's like one of my big things with the game, is that I don't like that. Gold Skulltulas as well. Don't like those. The fact that they're time-based as well. Sometimes you could be in an area that there is one, but it's not the right time of day, and you'll have no knowledge of that. So you have to explore both areas like both times of the day, pretty much. And for the reward for getting 100 is unlimited rupees to spend on nothing.
Yeah, I did set it up, and I was a bit confused by that.
Is that what the reward is for the
No, no. When you get to
Unlimited
100,
rupees.
Oh,
it's
right.
unlimited rupees to
Oh,
spend on
unlimited rupees. I
nothing
thought it was
because you
100
don't.
rupees.
Yeah,
No, no,
that'd be a
no.
mistake.
If you get to 50, you get a heart piece. And then it's I think it's 30. You get the Stone of Agony or the Shard
Yeah, you
of
do.
Agony,
There's
depending on the
different in the
version, and then you
3DS
can find the
version,
holes
yeah.
in the ground to find
Yeah.
200 rupees. So it's pointless.
Okay.
I think I ended on like 48 or something sculptures, and I felt like I was
Uh,
doing a pretty
I
good
got
job.
50
I wasn't
on
like
the
going out
3DS
of my way to find them, but I felt like I was pretty good with the ones that were
that you
like in all
found.
the dungeons and stuff. Yeah, like I felt like I was
Yeah,
good
yeah,
on those ones. Um, yeah. Have you got anything else
yeah.
bad about it?
No, no, those are my only two major things. Everything else has pretty much been said.
Right. So before we get into the story of Ocarina, I was going to talk about the gameplay, but we've pretty much covered it. The only thing that I didn't like about it was, again, what we've already covered, was it plays better on 3DS because you've got that second stick for moving the camera, even though it is just if you play on the new 3DS, you got the little knob, so it'll move the camera
Doesn't
independent.
work.
What?
Yeah, it doesn't work, does it?
It worked for
That's
me.
Doesn't
why it's
work.
Majora's Mask where
It's
it
Majora's
works.
Mask that works with.
It doesn't work with Ocarina of Time. What the
Oh,
fuck am I
they didn't
talking about
update
then?
it.
Right,
I
okay,
don't
well,
know.
ignore me then. I'm talking shit. So we'll get on
Yep.
to the story of Ocarina of Time. So again, my notes are awful, and I will try my best to muddle through them. So, Link is the only child in the Kokiri Forest without a fairy and gets bullied relentlessly for it. One day, the fairy Navi shows up and takes Link to the Great Deku Tree. The Great Deku Tree then sets Link off on a quest to stop the evil Ganondorf from taking over Hyrule. Link sneaks into Hyrule Castle and meets Princess Zelda, who has had premonitions of Ganondorf's treachery, and sets Link on the quest of collecting 3 artifacts and obtaining the Master Sword, the only weapon capable of defeating Ganondorf. Shortly after, Zelda is taken by Impa to safety and is inducted into the Sheikah tribe under the guise of a man named Sheik. Link witnesses Zelda's escape and she throws the sacred Ocarina of Time to him. Sorry for the spoilers there, if anyone hasn't played it.
For a 25-year-old game, nearly.
So once Link gains the artifact needed, he attempts to pull the Master Sword from its pedestal in the Temple of Time, but is sealed within the Chamber of Sages for 7 years. Once he awakens, he is greeted by Rauru, the only sage remaining in the chamber, and is told he was sealed here until he was old enough and powerful enough to stop the evil Ganondorf. Unfortunately, a lot happened in those 7 years. Ganondorf seized the Triforce from the Sacred Realm and turned Hyrule into a land of monsters. However, the Triforce split into 3 pieces. The Triforce of Courage went to Link, Zelda received the Triforce of Wisdom, and Ganondorf retained the Triforce of Power. Link, now an adult, must travel Hyrule and free the rest of the sages in order to be able to enter Hyrule Castle and defeat Ganondorf once and for all. Using the combined power of the Master Sword, the Triforce, and the 7 sages, Link and Zelda defeat Ganondorf and seal him in the Evil Realm, which was formerly the resting place of the Triforce, the Sacred Realm. Ganondorf then vows to return and destroy the descendants of both Link and Zelda. Zelda then uses the Ocarina of Time to return Link to his own time. Link places the Master Sword back in the Temple of Time's pedestal, and Navi disappears, her mission complete. So, before we get into the splitting of the timeline and all that kind of thing, what do we think of the story?
I'll just start real quick. I thought the story was quite good. It explained the general idea of what the Triforce is and how that works, and I feel like that helps, honestly, in all the games going forward, because obviously, again, this is coming from someone who never played Ocarina of Time, so all my knowledge was basically based on every game after this, so it was nice sort of getting the origins of that, and having it explained to me in full, pretty much, because this was the first time it was explained properly. It wasn't like an amazing story or anything, it was quite simple overall. It was literally just, there was an evil man, and then the evil man wanted to be powerful, and then be the most powerful. Like, it's nothing groundbreaking, and I do think the Zelda stories afterwards are a lot better. But I think for the time, and especially playing around with 3D for the first time and creating this like narrative, I think it's quite good. I think it's very simple to understand, and I think I can understand why people would be easily gripped by it, especially back then. I imagine, again, also just due to all the NPCs and stuff, there was definitely a lot in terms of story and a lot in terms of creating this narrative. But yeah, I think by today's standards, it's just very simple and it's enjoyable. I'd find it very difficult for someone to have issues with it. It's just a very basic and decent story, really. Nothing amazing.
Okay, Alex.
Oh yeah, pretty much agree with Lewis. It's a very like safe story, if you could say it like that. Basically, like you've got the big bad, pretty much, and then you gotta go thingy, gotta go save the princess. I think this what like set in stone for like future like things like this is Ganondorf, this is the big bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I,
happy
I,
with it.
I do feel like if you are playing Zelda, it is smart to know this story.
Yeah.
Because although all the other games like technically are separate and aren't linked, like I said, I do feel like this game.
Linked.
I do feel like this game explains the basic concept the best,
Yeah,
and just gives you the
it's
general idea of
right
all
at
the
the start of the
moving
game as
forward.
well.
Yeah.
That gives
So
you like a big rundown of it, which is what I like as well, because it
yeah,
teaches you about like
like
the goddesses and stuff, which previously they didn't teach
yeah.
you about.
Yeah.
Like, even though Skyward Sword is set before this and the game came out afterwards, I'd still feel like knowing this first is more important than knowing the stuff that happens in Skyward Sword.
Yeah,
I feel like it definitely would add to Skyward Sword as well, knowing this.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, like, so Skyward, like, so this, it kind of set the stage for every, like, 3D Zelda game going forward. And now it's,
Yeah.
you know, this Link is Zelda is Ganondorf, and then Skyward Sword
Yeah.
kind of came in at the end to try and explain why it's always the
try
same
and
thing
explain
over and
it,
over
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I actually really like the story. I introduced Ganondorf as in Ganondorf's form, not just like this big monster dude. I think the changes to the world during this 7-year gap are really good. Like, it shows exactly the devastation that Ganondorf like wreaked upon Hyrule during that time, and I really like that the 7 sages that you do collect from the dungeons are characters that Link has met at some point,
yeah.
like grown up or just like somebody's met recently, and they all mean
No,
something.
it is a fun fact for you, Oliver.
Hit
You
me.
know, Rauru, the stage that you meet, he's actually that owl, Kapora
Oh,
Gabora.
is it?
Oh, is it?
He is.
Oh.
So he's guiding Link to get to the
I did. I did
thing.
wonder what that owl was because he just appeared and then sort of left. And
He
then
disappears when you're an
over
adult
again,
because
yeah.
Rauru has introduced himself, so he doesn't need to guide you
Yeah,
anymore.
can I ask this because it never felt like it was explained properly in the story, and it seemed to be the same thing every time. Did the people who were the sages know they were the sages? Because they always seem to have this realization every time they would go to the temple thing. They'd be like, "Oh shit, yeah, I'm a sage." Lol.
Well,
And
No,
then
I
they all
think
die, don't they?
they all
Yeah,
died.
they all die.
So they reawakened as the sages because they all
right,
died in
okay.
their
Because
respective
it felt
areas.
like every bit of dialogue whenever you would see the sage come in, it'd be like, "Oh yeah, I am a sage. That's weird." Anyway, here's this coin.
I assume someone's had the conversation with them off stage. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
oh, you're the sage.
Yeah,
Don't act
Raru's-
surprised. It's fine.
Right, yeah. Because I was gonna say that's the first time they've come back since they've been dead. I don't
Well,
know
yeah,
what's screaming.
yeah, like exactly, like just like warp in and sit stood there in front of Link. Oh shit! Right, so that was the story. So favorite and least favorite dungeon besides the water temple. The water temple does not come into these
that
discussions.
doesn't count.
It does not count in this because it's
No,
it's everyone's
gonna
least
be
favorite.
everyone's least favorite.
Wait, what? Sorry, Alex.
Because
I said it was gonna be everyone's least
Oh,
favorite.
Yeah.
I thought you said, can I guess everyone's least favorite?
No.
I can tell you my favorite first.
Go for it.
My favorite by far was the Shadow Temple. I
Banger.
thought the Shadow Temple had some of the best puzzles. It also may be due to the fact that I had to play through it twice. I should have negative feelings towards this one. To explain real quick, when I played this, I got to the literally right at the end of the Shadow Temple, and then my game crashed, and obviously this game don't have autosave or anything. So I had to actually replay through the temple again, but the second time through, I did beat it in like 20 minutes. But yeah, I honestly really enjoyed the temple. I think it had the best puzzles, it had the best atmosphere. There was genuinely some really scary parts in that I was like, damn, this is like a Nintendo game. This is actually quite like gruesome. And I just enjoyed the Shadow Temple overall. If I had to say my least favorite outside of that, outside of the Water Temple, sorry, I don't know if it counts. Nah, it doesn't count.
We'll count it. We'll count it. I know what you're gonna say.
I was gonna say the
Bottom of the well.
The bottom of the well, yeah.
Yep.
Like I said, it just wasn't really a dungeon. It was just me being annoyed, at not being able to like get where I needed to go and having to traverse it multiple times and go back and forward because I missed like one little hole in the wall to get like a chest for a key, and I just didn't really enjoy it. I liked using the lens of truth, is it called?
Yep.
I did enjoy using that as an item, um, throughout both of those dungeons, but yeah, the bottom of the well, even though it has like the same atmosphere as the Shadow Temple, I just enjoyed it a lot less as a kid, and just doing that in the first place because I just
Yeah.
didn't think it worked as well.
Yeah, because you don't have your items when you're an adult, and you
Yeah.
can't like, use like the hover boots, for example.
But if I had to choose like an actual dungeon, not a mini dungeon, then probably the Spirit Temple. I didn't know
Really?
that. I don't think the Spirit Temple's puzzles were that fun, and it gives you that mirror shield that you then have for the rest of the game, but don't really do anything for the rest of the game. So
Yeah, you get
was
it
just,
too late.
yeah, it was just. I feel like that would have been a really good item to have earlier on because I feel like that could have led towards a ton of fun puzzles. Because I did somewhat enjoy using it to like project the lights and stuff, but yeah, you get it even in the dungeon itself. You get it really late into the dungeon, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wasn't super fond of that, and I felt like it was quite slow at the beginning because you have to run through the first half of it as a kid. And again, I didn't really like the kid stuff as much as the adult stuff. I much preferred it when I was adult Link. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Shadow Temple favorite, Spirit Temple least favorite.
Alex.
It's hard because I like them all pretty much equally because I know them all off by heart.
Oh yeah, let me say this as well. A lot of them, I think they're all quite great. I think this selection of temples in Zelda in general are some of the better ones. Like
yeah, there's
compared to other
just
Zelda
one
games.
outlier, which is the
Yeah,
water temple.
yeah. Compared to other Zelda games, I feel like this is a lot more. There's a better constant throughout, compared to other ones where there's definitely more lows and highs.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the things I wanted to compliment about Ocarina of Time. I liked how everything was just set up for you to do, and there was no bullshit of having to go do one thing, come back, go do this, go do that. You went to the temple, did the temple, left, went to the next temple. It was clean, straightforward, and there was just no bollocks. And it was one of the things I actually enjoyed about the game, compared to something like Skyward Sword, which is very annoying because there's too much
Having to go
backtracking.
back to the first temple.
Too much
again.
backtracking, and there's no fun
Yeah.
traversal, and it's awful. But yeah, carry on.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Lewis on the Shadow Temple. I don't know if we're doing like our favorite bosses separately as well.
We
but
are.
I really
Yeah, we are.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I really enjoy that boss as well. It's a really fun boss. I like the ghost ship as well. Riding on that, and then you have to fight the Stalfos on it.
Yeah.
The atmosphere in there is amazing. It actually is quite scary. Because if you go in there as an adult, you realize that you need the lens of truth because you have that sliding puzzle. So I like that thing where it's like, oh, I've missed something. I've got to go back and find it. Because I remember when I was younger, I used to think that that was the last temple. So I would go and try and do Spirit Temple first because of the how the medallions are placed in the menu.
Yeah.
It's actually Spirit Temple in the bottom left and Shadow Temple in the top left. So I always thought Shadow Temple was the last temple. I was like, this is a really cool last temple. But if I had to say a least favorite, I'd probably say Forest Temple. I don't. It's. I'm trying to think of like the worst way to say, like the best way to say how it's the worst. I don't like having to hunt down those four ghosts, and that's just the entire temple.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Get that.
I don't like the. I'm trying to. I don't want to like be proper negative about it because I do like the temple, but I think out of all the adult dungeons, I think it is the weakest, even though it's the first one that you get to. I don't like the. I'm trying to think more about it, but I can't think of stuff off the top of my head. I don't like the boss as well. It's just a mimic of the final boss. Spoilers, but it's just weaker. They couldn't think of another boss design, so they was like, shit. What do we do? We'll just get Ganon in there, and it's a puppet, I guess.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be talking about that later. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
So
Go on, Oliver.
So my favorite is actually the DQ tree. I really enjoyed it. I've actually picked both. Like, I've actually picked 2 child temples for this. But yeah, mine is a great Deku tree. I don't know. It just feels really good. Just it's such a massive, important character kind of thing, and it just feels like I'm actually, inside this tree, rather than just
First
inside.
step on your quest.
Exactly, and it just it's the first task he gives you kind of thing. You just go in, you give him a colonoscopy, and you get out kind of thing. And I really like the boss as well. Like it's like I always like the spider bosses. But my least favorite is Jabu Jabu's belly. We call it.
Yeah.
Inside
Jabu Jabu. I didn't like that. Didn't like it at all. Didn't like you having to carry around the princess all the time. She's very, very irritating. It's just ball ache. Just the entire thing was just a ball ache. Didn't enjoy it.
That's fair.
Yeah. So favorite.
Technically, you did pick a water temple.
I did pick a water temple.
I did. Child water temple.
Exactly. So, favorite and least favorite item. So I'll go first on this one. So the favorite for me was Din's fire, if that counts as an item.
Yeah, it counts as an item.
Yeah. So I like the 3 little powers you get. I think they're good. They make a nice change from the other items you usually get in a Zelda game. And Din's fire got me out of a few sticky situations at certain points because it was my panic button. If I was close to death, I'd just throw that down, and it usually does kill whatever's around me. My least favorite was the Deku nut, because what the fuck's that about? Why is it? Why is it in there?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I didn't see any. I never used the Deku nut.
No, I didn't. Exactly. It stayed there, full in my inventory the entire time, and never used it.
Like, what was the actual point? I'm sure it made an enemy easier. I don't know which enemy it made easier. But...
The final boss.
Deku.
Wait, what?
What?
Yeah, the final boss. You used Deku nuts for the final boss.
No, I didn't.
Don't say this like it's obvious, Alex. This isn't obvious. I promise you.
I did not use a Deku nut a single time in the final boss. Are you talking about Are you talking about super mega horse?
Yeah.
I did not use any nuts.
There's a lot of enemies that you can use them on, and it stuns them so you can get an attack. They're very useful.
I don't know if my way of beating Ganon, we'll talk about it in a bit. I don't know if my way of beating Ganon was the right way, but I didn't use a nut at all.
My judgment remains the same. Deku nuts are bad.
Okay.
My favorite item, honestly, I kind of mentioned it before, is probably the Lens of Truth, and that's mainly just due to how fun they can hide secrets with it, but also they could have made that. They could have made that way more of a ball ache to use than they did. They could have made that so you can only use it when you stood still, or
like a first person type thing.
Yeah, or it's a separate button that you have to press to have it done. But they made that so simple and easy to use, and you can have it on for as long as your magic.
As long as you have the magic, yeah.
Or you could use it for as short as you want. And I just felt it was very, very easy to use. And like I said, they could have designed that just way worse and made it just on an awful time. And honestly, I'll probably just agree with Oliver on the nut, because like I said, I didn't use the nuts a single time. I mean, I said I didn't use the Shard of Agony, but I mean, at least that's not
an item. That's a key item.
All right, okay, sorry. No, yeah, probably the nut. Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
Doesn't do anything. Stupid.
I know you said it does something, but it really just does. If I can get through the game without needing to use it, then it clearly just doesn't need to be there, does it? It's kind of just a pointless item. It's just there to fill up my inventory.
Right, so Alex's favorite item, the Deku nut. Go on.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, definitely. No, it wasn't my favorite. I don't know. They're all pretty much generic Zelda items, apart from the Lens of Truth, which is unique to this one and one of the game.
Yeah, overall these items are a bit boring compared to some of the other Zelda. Even just going off Skyward Sword, the last 3D game, that has way more fun items.
I mean, keep in mind, this might have been the first game where a lot of these generic Zelda items appeared.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
Honestly, probably just having the bow with the light arrows because of how strong they were.
Yeah.
They're honestly amazing. Pretty much one shot every enemy. Or maybe the ice arrows as well. Do either of you get the ice arrows?
Oh yeah, the ice arrows.
No, I got the fire arrow. No. I didn't get the ice arrow.
Didn't get the ice arrows because they're hidden away in Gerudo's fortress.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fire arrow. I mean, puzzle, if you can call it a puzzle. It was
shoot an arrow into the sun.
it was fun though. I liked it.
Yeah.
It was just nice.
Oh yeah, that's how
for
you got
least-
him, wasn't it? You had to fire an arrow into the sun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from like a specific part.
Yeah,
to, like,
yeah.
shoot, you know.
I remember.
My least favorite item was probably the hammer because of how useless it pretty much is. All it does is hit the rusty switches and flip over the fire guys in the fire temple.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
did like it for
all you
like.
use it for.
I did like it when I first got it because I like the stuff on item and it's satisfying smashing it down really hard. But yeah, I used it like once after that for like buttons
Yeah.
that you had to press.
It was just the gimmick for the fire temple, and then you didn't really use it apart from like, a
Yeah,
couple things.
I feel like they could have done a lot more with that, or just made it a lot more fun. But
Yeah.
well,
Right, so we're getting close to the end now. So, what is your favorite and least favorite boss from the game?
my boss favorite, at least, my least favorite boss, is don't remember the name of it. The one inside Jabu Jabu's belly.
Baronade.
It was ass. It was actually just cheeks. It wasn't a fun boss.
Full
I
on
didn't enjoy it.
cheeks.
I didn't enjoy my time with it at all. Honestly, the boss selection in this game I thought was really good. I enjoyed most of the bosses. Honestly, I'll give you a tied least favorite. The water temple morpher, was it the fucking tentacles with the ball?
Yeah, more.
Yeah, that's
That was
stupid,
ass.
I
That
hate
was not a
one.
boss. It was just get the football in the corner and smack it.
Yeah,
and then,
literally, you just get it in the corner and then you just whack it on.
like it was just such
Wait
a
for it to
stupid
pop.
boss. My favorite boss, probably. Again, I'm gonna have to have a tied here. I feel really bad, but there was really good boss in this game. It was either Bongo, is it the big hands
Yep.
with the bongos? Any game that has like an
Bongos.
entity with big hands that like clap, it's just a good boss for some reason.
You know he's like a
and-
beheaded guy. That's like the
Yeah,
thing that you
yeah,
hit
yeah,
him with
yeah.
the legs of truth. When I was
Um,
younger, I used to call it a strawberry.
and,
Hit the strawberry.
Yeah, no, it's a lot more grim than that. No, the strawberry.
Yeah,
and
literally.
And the sisters. I really liked the
Twin
gimmick
Rover.
of having to block their attacks and hit them. I didn't think it was a bit slow and finicky at times, especially since one sister can attack over and over again when you have the other sister's power stored, and then they just keep using the other power over and over.
Yep.
But I thought those two bosses in particular were really, really good. I liked the designs and I liked how most of the bosses played. I think it was a really good boss selection. Even the final fight, well, the first final fight with Ganon is good. Didn't like the second Ganon part as much, but that may be just due to how I completed it. I'll let you do that, and then we can talk about it. But yeah, those two in particular stand outs for me. Very good bosses.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah,
I'll
go for it. Yeah.
Least favorite is probably Phantom Ganon, the Forest Temple one. I don't like reusing bosses. I know this was probably the final boss, but I don't want to fight the same thing again. Yeah, it's just a lazy like implementation, I think, because they couldn't think of anything to put in the Forest Temple. Favorite is probably Bongo Bongo. I just like the concept of it and like him smacking his hands down.
Like I said,
And
it's just
when I was younger, I used to call it strawberry, and that's still funny to me.
It's just any Nintendo game that has these weird giant hand bosses. It's just they're all good
Yeah.
for some reason.
It's so strange.
Right, so your bastards have stolen both of mine.
Right,
So my
yeah.
favourite is Twin Rover for the
Yeah.
exact reasons that Lewis said. I really like using their own attacks against them. I like the reflecting. It's all very good. It feels very satisfying to take them down like that. And my least favourite was Phantom Ganon for the exact same reasons that Alex said. I don't like it when you reuse a boss. Skyward Sword did it much worse, granted,
Yeah.
but just throw another boss in there. You know what I mean? It wasn't even a good boss fight. It didn't feel like a good
No.
boss fight, and it felt out
You know,
of
you can
place
use
in
a
the Forest
bottle.
Temple. What? You can use a
You
bottle.
can use a bottle to deflect his attacks.
Oh right, okay,
An empty bottle to swing and hit rather than using a sword.
right,
Because
okay.
it uses the same animation.
What game is it where you can get a fishing rod out to distract a boss? Is that a Zelda game?
Well, the princess, isn't it?
The Twilight Princess. Which boss is it?
I think
Which
so.
boss
I
is
can't
that?
remember. I honestly couldn't. Is it the first one? No,
can't-
it's not.
I can't. It
I
might.
don't
It
know,
might
I
actually be
can't think of
Ganon. It might be Ganon. I can't remember.
Really?
But, yeah. One of the bosses you can get. We'll obviously talk about when we come to it. You can get a fishing rod out, and it just mesmerizes Ganon. Like it just stares at it.
Brilliant.
It loves it.
And I know there's a really cool thing. This might be kind of a spoiler, but I guess without context, it doesn't really matter. I know in Wind Waker, like a couple of years ago, like 4 years ago, someone figured out that, and this was the first person to ever figure it out, that there's a boss that you can kill in one shot if you water it, because it's like a plant-based boss. And someone found out as a joke, because the Twitch chat was like, it'll be funny if you water the plant. So they went and watered the boss before it like spawned in. It just kills them instantly. And I feel like that's really cool, and it makes me wonder if there's stuff like that in other Zelda games that people haven't figured out.
Hydrophobic plants. So before we move on to the final points, you wanted to talk about how you defeated Ganon, Lewis.
Yeah, so the last Ganon boss was weird to me, because I really struggled with it, because obviously your sword gets knocked out of your hand, and then you're just sort of raw dogging Ganon, not really knowing what to do. And I died quite a few times on it because I used like everything in my arsenal. I couldn't figure out how I was meant to hit him. So the way I was doing it was just I had a couple of arrows, so I'd shoot him in the face with an arrow, and then he'd like smack his nose, and then I'd run up behind him and smack him in the back. And this took like 10-15 minutes. This was really long.
Though? Because your sword has been knocked away.
The broken blade.
The broken knife.
Yeah, from the broken knife. Yeah, because that's the only thing I had in my inventory that I could hit. Because I was like, I don't get what I'm meant to hit him with. So I'd distract him with that and then hit him in the back once. I just did that for ages. Because I didn't know what to do.
There's many things that you can do.
I genuinely couldn't figure out. I tried playing songs. I tried doing also. I didn't know what to do. So I just.
So there's different ways. So you can use light arrows to blind him, and then.
Well, I did do that, but that would only last for a couple of arrows because it uses magic. I did do that.
Yeah, well, and then he hits the pillars, and then it drops magic. An arrow.
No, because I would go around making him hit all the stuff, and he wouldn't drop what I wanted. He would never drop magic. I had no magic.
Well, you could use Deku Nuts on his tail. You could use bombs. You could use the hammer. If you got the big Goron sword, you could use the big Goron sword the entire time. Bomb chews. Could use bomb chews on him.
Yeah, that was the thing with bombs. Well, I had none. I had like no bomb. I had nothing. Like literally, because I was using everything in my inventory to try and do it, and nothing was working. So I like exhausted all of my resources. I didn't have anything, and that was the only way I could conceivably beat him. Because I was like, the game clearly wants me to be able to hit him, and I have nothing. But I guess I have the hilt of this sword that I can smack him with. So I just did that.
Amazing.
I didn't know how you were meant to do it if you didn't have that. Because then at that point you wouldn't have had anything. So I was confused. But yeah, like I guess. You can be here normally. Right. I'm just bad, apparently.
Right. So onto the final point, just quick answers because we're starting to run over slightly. So do we think this game deserves another remake, like a Switch?
I think it needs to be on Switch.
I don't think it needs to be remade. I think they just need to port this one over to Switch somehow.
The 3DS version.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
They'd have to do some.
Yeah,
it'd have to be like a fusion between the N64 and.
Yeah, they'd have to completely redo
version.
the UI and stuff, but I don't think this game needs to have like a full-on remake. If they did it, I wouldn't be upset, but I'd feel like it was just kind of wasted resources, honestly, and they could have done something else with a different game. I feel like the 3DS is a really good version of the game. They just need to figure out how to get it onto like a Switch or something, yeah, because it's kind of stuck on a 3DS, which is kind of annoying for a lot of people.
Pointless creatively, maybe. Waste of resources, never, because this would always sell. No matter. Well, I don't think they're going to do it because they put it on Nintendo Switch Online. They don't need to. They've made it available. You know what I mean, to the current audience. I don't think they'd do it, but it'd never be a waste of resources because it would sell, and it would sell really well.
I mean, just because something sells well doesn't mean to me it wouldn't be.
No, not to you. Exactly. To you, it would be a waste of resources, but to them, no, not at all.
Because they could remake like anything, any other Zelda game. Obviously, to be fair though, after Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, in terms of 3D Zeldas, none of them need to be remade.
Oh, mate.
Twilight Princess doesn't need a remake.
It doesn't need a remake. It needs a port. But I would like for it to be remade.
Yeah, it needs a port. Yeah. But remaking something like Twilight Princess would make no sense. They would achieve nothing from it.
Right.
It'd just be a waste of everyone's time.
I'm going to start wrapping up. So, first of all,
can I talk about one little thing?
Oh, you're going to have to. Now you've said it. I'm going to feel I feel like a right bastard to say no.
I just want to talk about the cut temples that was meant to be in the game. So there was originally meant to be a light temple where as soon as you pulled the Master Sword out, you would be in the Light Temple, which got reused in Twilight Princess, I think, with the Sky Sanctuary. So that got reused for that. There was meant to be an ice temple underneath the ice in Zora's domain. You can see it underneath the ice. So all the elements of that got moved over to the ice cavern. So there was a place that you could get the iron boots. So that's why the ice cavern exists. That's why it's just this weird little temple, but not really a temple. What else was there was also meant to be a wind temple, which got replaced with the forest temple, which is why if you look on the medallions for the water and the forest temple, it's a wind icon and a snowflake.
Right, okay.
So that's why it's a bit weird, which is why in Ganon's castle there is wind elements in the forest bit and ice puzzles in the water bit, and there's also like light puzzles as well, which were also reused in Spirit Temple with the mirror shield. So that's like a cool little details that I found about the game. I'm trying to think of like one little extra thing. No, I think that's it. There was the magic powers, Din's fire and all that. There was meant to be 7. I know they found a shadow one in the files of the game, which would like hide you from enemies, and then you'd be able to sneak attack them. That was the only one that they could implement.
So those 7 would have been like to do with the sages rather than to do with the goddesses, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my sons.
Yeah, and you could originally use the medallions on your arrows as well, so you could have shadow arrows and stuff like that. But I guess they ran out of time because this was meant to be a 64DD game rather than a cartridge, and it got moved over. Yeah, I think that's it. And Ganon's Castle was originally meant to be a hub world, and like Mario 64, but then it got changed to an open world.
That would have been
there you go, Ollie.
Cracking.
It would have.
Right.
You can go.
All right. So first of all, I just want to address the gap between these. I don't know if anyone's been waiting feverishly for the next episode of Hyrulean Chronicles, and we appreciate that you have been waiting 4 months. But yeah, we're hoping to start ramping these up in the next few months in the run up to Breath of the Wild 2. We're hoping to get them all done before Breath of the Wild 2. It might take a bit of sweating, but we're hoping that we'll be able to do it. So hopefully we'll start seeing these at the very least once a month, if not twice a month, depending on the length of the game. We'll be combining Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, trying to speed it up a little bit, as well as keeping it fresh. So at the end of this game, this series is obviously all to do with the timeline, and we're following the timeline. At the end of this game, the timeline splits. So at the end of the game, adult Link goes back to his young self in his original timeline, and Ganon gets caught in that one. So that splits the timeline there. So you've got the child version of the timeline where Ganon gets caught and imprisoned, and you've got the adult version of the timeline where Ganon has been killed but has already been wrecked havoc and all of Hyrule. That's still a complete state. And there's also a third timeline which you don't see at all, but it's where Link fails to beat Ganon in the final battle.
Right. It's like Lewis's 3 failed attempts.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how it happened. It was all my fault because I didn't know how to beat him.
So Lewis has created an entire timeline. So firstly, we are going down the Fallen Hero timeline where Ganon has defeated Link and has taken the Triforce for himself. Therefore, our next video in our Hyrulean Chronicles series will be a Link to the Past. Alex started beating it. I'm currently halfway through it, and
I'm going to start soon. I'm beating Crisis first.
Lewis is going to start it. So I'm just going to quickly run through, before I let you go, I'm going to quickly run through the release schedule for the month, because there's a lot going on this month. Already up on the channel, we've got reactions for the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet trailer, as well as reactions to the PlayStation State of Play that happened on the 2nd of June. But and by the time this is out, we'll also have the tier list of Mario 64 levels out. And then, so after this, on the 9th of June, we've got the Summer Games Fest reactions. On the 11th of June, we've got the review of Mario Strikers Battle League. On the 12th of June, we've got the Xbox Bethesda Showcase reactions. On the 20th of June, we've got our discussion podcast, and this month's topic is games we take to a desert island with us. On the 25th of June, we've got a tier list of a UK sweets / candy, whatever you want to call it. And on the 30th of June is our video game book club review of Crisis. That's everything. Like I said, there's a lot. If you want to know when things are coming out, click that subscribe button, like, subscribe, all that kind of lovely stuff. But until next time, we shall see you later.